What Ernie Clement is doing for the Toronto Blue Jays in spring training is downright ridiculous, and he is making a case to be on that opening day roster, but will he make it? That's a big question that a lot of Blue Jay fans are posing, so I'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, Ernie Clement has been quietly going under the radar amongst Blue Jay fans in spring training, and it's not because of his performance. It's not because he's not a good player or popular among the fan base. It's because he's kind of been lost in the shuffle in terms of making this Blue Jay team, and he was kind of an afterthought heading into spring training. Obviously, it was a foregone conclusion that one of the final roster spots would be going to Santiago Espinal, and then everything else would just fall into place for the Blue Jays. But Ernie Clement is making a case to be on this team, and obviously he's not going to be an everyday player. We don't know how much he's actually going to play if he does crack the roster. But he doesn't have any options. And if he does get sent down, or if he doesn't make the team out of spring training, then the Jays are going to lose him for nothing because he's going to get claimed. He's been that good this spring. And Nick, he's been very fun to watch. He's doing a lot of damage against real good pitchers as well. And his numbers are speaking for themselves, and he's making every case to be on this team come opening day.
Yeah, we thought, you mentioned it, that Santiago Espinal was the foregone conclusion. But Peter, I don't think that is the case anymore, and we'll get into all that. Before we do, a quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 12,000. Now, Peter, it started off, obviously, we saw Ernie Clement last year. He put up a 1 WAR in 29 games. He played very well, and now he comes into spring, and I don't even know how to say it besides, he's probably been the most impressive, being unbelievable and really surprising me, surprising most Jays fans with his performance, because he's not only hitting for average like we're used to, he's hitting for a bit of power as well. We saw a bunch of stuff here. I'm going to be throwing a bunch of stats on your screen now. And this one, Thomas Howell, Ernie can stop, won't stop. He can hit, he can field, he can play multiple positions. No reason he shouldn't make the Jays roster out of camp. And Peter, every Jays fan, every Jays reporter, writer is all kind of coming together to the conclusion that I don't know what you do with Espinal. That's up to you to figure out. Obviously, he's making $3 million, so that would be a lot to pay a minor league player. But if you want your team to win, the best chance is with Ernie Clement on the field. From Blue Jays News, Ernie Clement this spring, single off, and you can just read them all. I'm not going to read off every one. But Peter, a lot of good players here. He got a triple off Garrett Cole, a home run off Corbin Burns, a hit off Corbin Burns, home run off Zach Eflin. Like, he's not even hitting against the bad pitchers, the kind of AAA, AA, single A, college, whatever it is, pitchers. He is dominating major league pitching, and I'm all in on he just makes so much sense for this team right now, especially with the lack of strikeouts, which we'll get to in a second, but he doesn't strike out at all.
Yeah, and he showed his capabilities last year as well. When Bo Bichette went down with injury, he was the everyday shortstop for the Toronto Blue Jays for a small period of time.
Yep.
So you look at that and, give him a shot. Give him a shot. I mean, the only reason why Espinal has been on this roster for so long and has been relied upon was because of his ability to play shortstop. And worst case scenario, if Bo Bichette goes down, who's going to take over in shortstop at shortstop? Oh, it has to be Espinal. He's the only guy that can do it. When Merrifield can't do it, Biggio can't do it. So that's why Espinal has been valued over the past couple of years here. He's been a below-average hitter. I mean, for the majority of his career, he contributes when he can offensively, but his ceiling is not very high. And Ernie Clement has been making contact at a ridiculous rate going back to last season. Obviously, he doesn't have immense power either, but in terms of versatility and just contact ability, I think he's just as valuable, if not more valuable, than Espinal. Get him for a fraction of the price, and he doesn't have any minor league options left. He doesn't. So if you don't get him the roster spot coming out of spring training, then you're going to lose him for nothing. I guarantee you the Oakland A's are going to pick him up, and he's going to play 162 games for them, and he's going to be their only all-star. That's what's going to happen with Ernie Clement if the Blue Jays don't give him that final roster spot, and I don't want that to happen. I want him to be a Blue Jay, and again, it's the final roster spot. It's not as crucial as we're all making it out to be, Nick, but still, he is going to get in the game every now and then, that 26th guy. So you want him to be valuable, and you want him to be able to hold his own against major league pitching. And Ernie Clement has definitely earned himself that spot.
Yeah, this issue is, you mentioned it is the last roster spot, but it's more pressing because of the options And if you rewind back to the start of spring training over the first few games, I don't know if you remember, reports came out that there were multiple scouts at the games, or scouts saying that they see Ernie Clement as an everyday, or at the very least a significant impact big leaguer. So I mean, someone would claim Ernie Clement, probably the A's, and then they would grab everyone. You look at Espinal's stats. He hasn't had a good hitting season since 2021. In the past 200 games, and this is not hating on Santiago Espinal. It's just saying that, I mean, you mentioned it, a 644 OPS last year, and even if you go back to 2022 in his All-Star campaign, a below 700 OPS. And yes, his glove is what it is. But when you're looking at Ernie Clement, what else could you be asking of Ernie Clement? If you invite him into spring, or obviously he's on the spring training roster and all that, he has no options left, and he goes out and has the best hitting of obviously his career, a little stretch, but of any really Blue Jays hitter, and he doesn't make the team. I don't really know what message you're sending to him. You look at the plate appearances. Peter has 0 whiffs in 23 plate appearances and a 1,200 OPS. He has more home runs than whiffs. Like, it seems like out of a video game, the stuff he's doing. And you're looking at his season last year. Obviously, it's funny you mentioned he's coming from the Athletics in 2022. But in 29 games, he had a 144 OPS plus, an 885 OPS. Obviously not a power guy, but he looked very comfortable at the major league level, both offensively and defensively. Yeah, he's not the best defender in the world, but he showed it at the major league level, albeit in a very small sample size. But you have to give the guy a chance if he's hitting like this. I don't see a reason they don't. There's zero reason.
Absolutely. You absolutely have to give him a chance. And even though it was a small sample size, those stats that you showed from last year, Nick, he's a big reason why the Blue Jays stayed in the playoff race when Bo Bichette went down. Everyone was saying, season is over. Our best hitter is gone. Where are we going to go from here? How are the Blue Jays going to recover from this? Ernie Clement stepped in and did a fantastic job. Did he replace Bo Bichette? No, but he gave you very adequate production, and he gave you the chance to win games, and he didn't cost you anything, right? He came in there, he did a great job, and he went above and beyond what Blue Jay fans and the Blue Jays front office was expecting of him. So just for that portion of the season alone, he deserves an opportunity. And add on top of that, the way that he's been performing in spring training, he's looked fantastic, so comfortable. And I think the reason why he's flying under the radar, Nick, is because he's been in those minor league lineups for the Toronto Blue Jays. When the Blue Jays play all their starters, we don't really see Ernie Clement in there. We see Espinal every now and then. Like when you go 1 through 9 and you see Springer at the top with Vladdy, Bo, and Varsho and whatnot, Ernie Clement is never in those lineups. So he's doing his damage as the feature guy in the lineup pretty much against really good pitchers, because when you have a minor league lineup, that's when the other teams go and put their best pitchers out there to get work and try to pinpoint a specific thing to work on, and that's when they're experimenting. So Ernie Clement has been doing all of his damage off of really good pitching, and he deserves a chance. He's one of the hardest workers in the Blue Jays organization. Obviously, we know about his relationship with the Gate 14 podcast, and it would just make for some great content and just great baseball over the course of 162 games.
Yeah, and one thing before we wrap up, I will mention this. I've seen this online, and I mean, do you think that if he obviously doesn't make the team, or if Espinal makes the team, I think the main reason might be they don't want to pay a AAA player $3 million a year, because obviously his salary is a lot more than others. But I don't think the Jays at this point can be nitpicking about that. I mean, maybe there's a world they take Clement and Espinal, but I think at this point you send Espinal down, see if you can get some of his form back, and let Clement hit. And the worst case is if Clement falls off a little bit or doesn't hit the way that we think he will, then, I mean, that's fine. You can call Espinal back up, but you don't have that luxury with Clement. Any quick final thoughts before we wrap up? Pretty adamant here. I would be very upset, and you'll probably see a video if they cut Ernie Clement.
Well, again, I mean, it's like the conversation that we had last year with
Lucas.
Evading me.
Yeah.
He's evading me. Lucas and who was the other? Otto Lopez. Otto Lopez. That's right. Like we made a big deal out of this. Like, oh, why didn't Otto Lopez make the team? Why didn't he crack the big league roster? He was tearing it up in spring. He showed great things going back to last year.
Anymore.
How much did Nathan Lucas play?
Exactly.
Honestly, like maybe 20 games, like maybe started 5 games and got into a handful of others as a pinch runner or as a defensive replacement. Like, it's not very crucial, that final roster spot. And, you know, you want to see good players develop and play. And for Ernie Clement, I still think he's got a little bit more to reach in his ceiling. So you want to see him play, and you don't want him to be on the end of the bench, but you don't want him to lose. You don't want to lose him for nothing. Whereas Espinal, he can go and develop a little bit further in AAA and work on some things, and maybe he can come back and be a valuable contributor for you. You don't know. So, I mean, it's not a big deal for the Blue Jays, but I really think Ernie Clement has earned an opportunity, and he might play himself into some extra playing time as the season rolls along.
Yeah, I guess the big difference would be the fact that you could lose Clement, but ultimately it won't make a huge deal either way. I'm more so just kind of curious about what they're going to do with Santiago Espinal, because quite frankly, I don't think he's earned a spot on this team. Maybe he has because of his past play to a degree, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now and let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on Ernie Clement versus Santiago Espinal, and we'll see you tomorrow.